Let's be real. Most people suck at saying no. You've been there, right? Someone asks for a favor, invites you to something you really don't want to do, or tries to pull you into their drama. And instead of setting a boundary, you freeze. You hesitate. You hear yourself say, "Sure, no problem," while your inner voice is screaming, "Why did I just agree to that?" It's like some invisible force compels you to keep people happy, even at the cost of your own sanity. But what if I told you that mastering the art of saying no isn't just about boundaries, it's about power, control, and inner peace? And the ancient Stoics. They had this down to a science. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or cold. It's about clarity. It's about understanding what truly matters and cutting out the noise. When you start applying Stoic principles to saying no, everything changes. You stop over-explaining. You stop feeling guilty. You stop treating every request like it's your personal responsibility to fix. Instead, you gain the ability to protect your time, your energy, and your mental space without apology. And here's the kicker. When you do this, people respect you more, not less. In this video, we're diving deep into the Stoic mindset behind saying no, why you struggle with it, how to shift your perspective, and the exact strategies you can use to start saying no with confidence and zero guilt. If you've ever felt like a prisoner to people's expectations, trust me, you're going to want to stick around. Let's get into it. Number 1. The silent glare method. Here's something no one tells you. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your no. Not your coworker pushing extra tasks on you, not your friend guilting you into plans, and definitely not that pushy neighbor who always just needs a quick favor. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't a long-winded excuse, it's silence. Enter the silent glare method. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, you want me to just stare at people? Yes, and trust me, it works. You see, we've been trained to believe that saying no needs to be polite, padded with excuses, wrapped in a soft, apologetic tone. But here's the truth. Your time, energy, and sanity are worth more than an awkward explanation. And nothing unsettles a manipulator faster than an unshaken, silent stare. We've all been there, trapped in that moment where someone asks us for something we don't want to do. You freeze, your brain scrambles for an excuse, and before you know it, you're saying yes just to avoid discomfort. But what if, instead of scrambling, you just stopped? What if the next time your overbearing boss dumps extra work on you, you looked up slowly, met their eyes, and just stared, expression neutral, eyes steady, not a single word escaping your lips? No resistance, no explanation, just quiet, unshaken presence. The psychological weight of silence is uncomfortable. People expect pushback, an excuse, or at least some sort of reaction. But when faced with nothing but a firm, silent stare, their own words start echoing in their heads. They second-guess themselves. They scramble to fill the awkwardness. They retreat, because silence is power. I tried this once at work. A co-worker, let's call him Dave, had a habit of offloading his responsibilities onto me. One day he casually slid a report onto my desk saying, "Hey, can you handle this?" I'm swamped. I looked at him. Just looked. No scowl, no smile, no nod, just pure blank silence. Seconds passed. He shifted uncomfortably. I mean, if you're busy, I can figure it out." Another 2 seconds. He let out a nervous chuckle, grabbed the report, and walked away. I never had to deal with Dave's nonsense again. This isn't about being rude. It's about reclaiming control. Saying no doesn't require a performance, a softener, or a guilt-ridden explanation. Sometimes all it takes is a moment of pure, unshaken silence. Because when words fail to set boundaries, presence will. And in a world that constantly demands more of you, your silence speaks volumes. Number 2, the delayed decline tactic. You don't have to say no right away. In fact, sometimes the best way to say no is to not say anything at all, at least not immediately. Enter the delayed decline tactic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't it better to be upfront? Shouldn't I just rip the band-aid off and say no? Well, sure, in a perfect world where people accept rejection gracefully, but let's be real, they don't. The moment you say no, some people start pushing, guilting, negotiating. Suddenly, you're trapped in an exhausting back and forth, explaining yourself, justifying your reasons, and, if you're not careful, caving under the pressure. But when you delay your response, you remove the confrontation altogether. We've all been there. Someone asks for a favor, and instead of saying no, you panic and agree. Or you try to decline politely, only to be hit with the classic, "Oh, come on, it's just this one time." And now, instead of standing your ground, you're making up excuses, promising next time, or, worst of all, actually doing the thing you never wanted to do in the first place. Exhausting, right? Well, here's a simple trick. Stop answering right away. Next time someone asks you for something you don't want to do, just say, "Let me check and get back to you." That's it. No commitment, no explanation, just a neutral pause button on the conversation. Then, after a while, a few hours, a day, whatever works, you follow up with, "Hey, I checked and I won't be able to." No details, no over-explaining, just a calm, closed-door response. And here's the best part. By the time you say no, they've already mentally moved on. The urgency they felt when asking you, gone. Their emotional investment in your response, faded. The energy they would have used to push back, spent elsewhere. I tested this once with a coworker who always tried to dump last-minute tasks on me. He'd pop up at my desk, wide-eyed and desperate, saying, "Hey, can you take care of this real quick?" The old me would have either caved or wasted 10 minutes making excuses. But this time, I just nodded and said, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you." I went back to my work, finished my coffee, and an hour later sent a quick message. "Hey, I checked, and I won't be able to." No debate, no drama, just done. And guess what? He never bothered me with last-minute requests again. This isn't about being sneaky. It's about reclaiming your time without unnecessary conflict. Saying no immediately can feel like confrontation, and some people love to argue. But delaying your response, that makes their urgency dissolve while keeping your control intact. So next time someone asks for more than you're willing to give, don't rush to answer. Pause, breathe, and say the magic words, "Let me check and get back to you." Because your time, your energy, and your peace of mind, they're worth protecting. Number 3, the agree but trap. Sometimes the best way to say no is to almost say yes. Confused? Don't be. Welcome to the agree but trap, a sneaky little tactic that lets you dodge unwanted requests without a fight. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't this just passive-aggressive? No, no, no. This isn't about manipulation. It's about self-preservation. Because let's be real, saying no outright can sometimes feel like declaring war. People push back. They guilt-trip you. They act personally offended that you have a life outside of their demands. But when you agree, with conditions, suddenly the burden shifts back onto them. We've all dealt with that one person who just won't take a hint. Maybe it's a coworker who always needs just a little help. Maybe it's a friend who assumes you're always free to help them move. Or maybe it's that family member who loves volunteering your time for things you never signed up for. And every time you try to decline, they push, they whine, they negotiate. And before you know it, you're knee-deep in a commitment you never wanted. That's where the agree but trap comes in. Here's how it works. Instead of saying a flat-out no, you say, "Sure, I'd love to help, but..." And then you follow up with an impossible or undesirable condition, something that makes them rethink their request. "Sure, I'll help you move, but only if we do it at 6 a.m. Or, "I'd love to take on that extra work, but I'll need your name on the email so my boss knows we're both responsible for it." See what happens? They either back off themselves, or suddenly their request doesn't seem so important anymore. I used this on a colleague once. He had a habit of dumping last-minute work on me while conveniently leaving early. One Friday afternoon, he popped into my office with that fake innocent look and said, "Hey, could you handle this for me? I have to run." Old me would have sighed, given in, and worked late. But new me just smiled and said, "Of course. I'll get to it first thing Monday, unless you'd rather stay and go over it together right now." He blinked, hesitated. Then, with an awkward chuckle, he muttered, "You know what? I'll just take care of it." This tactic isn't about playing games. It's about protecting your time without the drama. It's about making people think twice before they try to shift their responsibilities onto you. Because when you put the decision back in their hands, suddenly their urgency disappears. So next time someone tries to push their agenda onto you, don't argue, don't over-explain. Just smile and say, "Sure, but..." and watch them trap themselves in their own request. Your time, your boundaries, your peace. Number 4, the guilt-free ghost rule. Not every no needs an explanation. Not every rejection requires closure. Sometimes the best way to protect your time, energy, and sanity is to simply disappear from the conversation, without guilt, without apology, and without the need to justify yourself. Enter the guilt-free ghost rule, a strategic exit from situations that don't serve you, and yes, it's completely ethical. Now, before you call me heartless, hear me out. This isn't about abandoning people who truly need you, or ghosting in relationships that require honesty. This is about opting out of conversations and commitments that only drain you. The unnecessary debates, the guilt trips, the endless back and forths where someone just won't take your no as an answer. We've all been there. You say no, and instead of accepting it, the other person starts negotiating. "Are you sure? Can't you just squeeze it in? I'd do it for you." And suddenly, you're not just declining, you're stuck defending your decision, explaining yourself over and over until, surprise, you give in out of sheer exhaustion. But here's a wild idea. What if you just stopped responding? What if, after a certain point, you simply exited the conversation and let your silence be your answer? No over-explaining, no debating, just done. Think of it like setting down a ringing phone that you never agreed to pick up in the first place. Sounds freeing, right? Because it is. I once had a friend who treated plans like a negotiation. I'd say, "Hey, I can't make it this weekend." And she'd immediately counter with, "Okay, but what about just for an hour, or Sunday, or next week? Come on, just a quick coffee." And suddenly my no wasn't a no, it was an opening argument. I used to feel guilty, scrambling to come up with ironclad reasons for why I couldn't go. But then I tried something new. I simply said, "I can't, but have fun." And when she pushed, I didn't respond. That was it. No stress, no guilt, just peace. And you know what? She got the message. This isn't about being rude. It's about honoring your time without feeling like you owe an essay every time you decline. The people who respect you, they'll get it. The ones who don't, well, they'll eventually tire themselves out when they realize you're not engaging. So next time you feel trapped in a cycle of justifying your boundaries, remember this: silence is a response. And sometimes it's the most powerful one you can give. Number 5, the give 'em the mirror strategy. Ever notice how some people love to push their problems onto you? They'll ask for favors they wouldn't do themselves, expect you to bend over backward for their convenience, or throw emotional guilt bombs when you set a boundary. But what if I told you that instead of arguing, over-explaining, or feeling guilty, you could simply hand them a mirror? That's right. The give 'em the mirror strategy is about reflecting their own requests right back at them and letting reality do the talking. Now, before you think this is some Jedi mind trick, it's actually just simple psychology. People rarely see how unreasonable they're being until they experience it from the other side. We've all been there. Someone asks you for a last-minute favor, expects you to cover for them, or assumes you'll change your plans just because it's convenient for them. And if you say no, suddenly, you're the bad guy. Sound familiar? Here's where the mirror comes in. Instead of getting defensive, flip the situation on them. If someone asks you to work late because they're behind, try, "Oh, would you be able to stay late tomorrow to cover for me too?" Watch their face. If a friend expects you to cancel your plans to help them move last minute, ask, "Would you cancel your plans for me in the same situation?" If they hesitate, boom, there's your answer. You didn't have to argue, justify, or explain. You just held up the mirror and suddenly they see how unfair their request actually is. I once had a coworker who constantly asked me to switch shifts for her, always with some emergency that conveniently never seemed to end. The first few times I helped, thinking I was being a good colleague, but after the 5th or 6th time, I tried something different. When she asked me to cover for her again, I said, "Of course. But hey, can you take my shift next Friday? I have a thing." Her face dropped. She stammered, "Oh, actually, I was planning something that night." And just like that, she realized what she was doing. She never asked me again. This isn't about playing games. It's about teaching people in the most natural way possible that fairness is a two-way street. If they wouldn't do it for you, they have no right to expect it from you. So next time someone tries to shift their burden onto you, don't argue. Just hold up the mirror and watch them see themselves for the first time. Number 6. The no facade approach. You know that exhausting feeling of having to put on a polite, agreeable, or even slightly fake version of yourself just to keep the peace? Smiling through conversations you don't care about, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, pretending to be okay with things you're absolutely not okay with. Yeah, we've all done it. And let's be honest, it's draining. But what if I told you that you don't have to? Enter the no facade approach, the radical, liberating idea that you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that isn't real. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, so you're saying I should just stop being polite? Nope. This isn't about being rude, dismissive, or making everything about you. It's about dropping the unnecessary performance. It's about allowing yourself to be authentic, even if that means someone might not like it. Because here's the truth. People can feel when you're faking it, and ironically, they respect you more when you're real. We've all been in those situations where we say yes to things we don't want to do just to avoid awkwardness. Maybe you agreed to grab dinner with that one friend who drains your energy, or you forced yourself to be extra nice to someone who constantly oversteps your boundaries. Why? Because you didn't want to seem mean. But let's flip the script. What if you just didn't? What if you simply said, "Hey, I appreciate the invite, but I'm gonna pass tonight." No long excuse, no fake enthusiasm, just the truth, delivered with kindness. I remember this one time at work, a colleague kept trying to force a buddy-buddy friendship with me. He'd always crack jokes, try to rope me into after-work plans, and talk to me like we were lifelong best friends. And look, he was a nice guy, but I just didn't vibe with him like that. Instead of pretending to be all in on this forced dynamic, I simply stopped performing. I didn't fake excitement. I was still polite, still friendly, but I didn't force a connection that wasn't there. And you know what? The weird tension disappeared. He stopped trying so hard, I stopped feeling drained, and we settled into a natural, neutral work relationship that felt way more comfortable. This is about freeing yourself from the exhausting obligation of being someone you're not. It's about reclaiming the energy you waste on forced interactions and using it where it actually matters. When you drop the facade, you attract the right people, set healthier boundaries, and most importantly, you show up for yourself without apology. So here's your permission slip. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to perform. You get to be you, and that's enough. Thanks for watching. I hope this video gave you some clarity and confidence when it comes to saying no, without guilt, without over-explaining, and without feeling like you owe anyone an apology for protecting your time and energy. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps get this message out to more people. And if you want more content on Stoicism, mindset, and personal growth, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you know someone who struggles with setting boundaries, share this video with them. Sometimes, all it takes is a shift in perspective to start taking control of our lives. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know. What's the hardest part about saying no for you? Or have you ever had a moment where you set a boundary and it completely changed your relationships or mindset? Let's keep the conversation going. Remember, saying no isn't about being difficult. It's about being intentional. Your time, your peace, and your mental well-being are worth protecting. Stay strong, stay mindful, and I'll see you in the next one.